Manifesting. It is the act of bringing desired outcomes into the tangible world through active manipulation of your own mindset, often practiced through focused visualization, intentional thought, and pure faith. Also related to the law of attraction, which is a philosophical theory in which positive or negative thoughts can attract corresponding outcomes. Bringing ideas into the tangible world is now often called manifesting, but it has its own philosophical and even scientific roots. Not to mention that people have been praying, visualizing, and mentally working toward a desired outcome from the dawn of time. The complexity of human creativity and how our brain works in terms of imagination, invention, theorization, prior to actual manufacturing, has been an interesting topic of discussion for millennia. So interesting that the current capitalist system has tricked us into believing that we need to make money out of absolutely every idea we come up with. That every hour we are awake is an opportunity to create something sellable. And that not even our hobbies are safe from this. Because who has never received that dreaded, "You do X so well, you should be selling it," only to know that they would never be paying what you deserve to charge for whatever X is. But that's a point we'll discuss at another time. Such a very interesting topic, the capacity to create from scratch, that there are actual published authors, content creators, and even companies making money out of the idea that you can make money just by thinking on money. I know, that sounds ridiculous and rather scammy, but it doesn't make it less real. Nowadays, we live in a world that's hyper-connected via the internet, and social media is the perfect breeding ground for all sorts of businesses, even cultish ones. I'm really digressing from the fact that manifesting, or better said, using your head for something else than growing hair, is currently a very prostituted concept. And from the fact that artisans, artists, and all creative minds, especially from the past, I'd say 40 to 50 years and counting, are suffering the consequences of a system that wants you completely brainwashed. Thinking that thinking positive is part of your work and that you definitely should be doing more and better and always going beyond. Well, I'm still in the process of deconstructing these concepts. Healing is a never-ending task, and it's not linear. And I'm totally using this video to actually elaborate on these ideas regarding creativity, arts and crafts, societal expectations, the patriarchy, the capitalist system we're still living, and money. Let's see if I can explain how I feel about all of these and how I see they affect each other. But before I get started frying your brains with what brews in mine, hello! My name is Marta, and I'm a fantasy costume designer and maker based in Spain. I currently manage my online shop on Etsy, offering headpieces, corsets, and pieces of fantasy and stage costume. I also run several profiles on social media, being Instagram and TikTok my top fave and the ones I'm most active at. And I also have a bilingual Patreon in which I share exclusive content like tutorials and fully explained making-ofs, show raw behind-the-scene activities, provide early access to videos like this one, and much more. Now, let's get into the thick of it. Chapter 1. Societal expectations of creativity. I'm blatantly stealing this sentence from an ex-partner of mine who's also an artist, and let me take this chance to send him regards from here. The sentence is, when I get asked when I started painting, I answer, when did you stop? It's brilliant if seen that way. We all paint or make stuff with our hands when we are children. We experiment and learn about the world playing with toys, with crayons, with paper, plasticine. Science has proven time and time again that children of all ages should have access to tools with different shapes, colors, textures, even timbre, to help them with brain and fine muscle development. It's beneficial to kids that they frequently get exposed to environments with items that they can manipulate, always according to their age. I've got a degree in music teaching, but my experience in teaching has been rather brief. And I'm not a health professional, so please take these following statements with a grain of salt and do your research. I'll leave a couple links about child psychology in the description box in case you're interested. I'm sure many educative systems other than the Spanish one has this compulsory subject in primary education. In Spain we often call it educación plástica y visual, that we could translate as visual and plastic arts education, or maybe arts and crafts. This proves how important it is for society to have creative people. I always draw on the same example when people say that art is not productive. Someone got paid to make the label on your tomato sauce can, for example. Someone studied to make that label design interesting enough for you to choose that brand of tomato sauce and not another. The color, the image, if it's an illustration or a photograph, the font, the composition, everything has been taken care of, so you pick that can from the shelf and not the other brands beside it. And that, my friend, is also a form of art. It's called graphic design. We live surrounded by forms of art that usually go completely underestimated, unnoticed, or even neglected. The mug I have my tea in. I like this one. The shape, the size, the material. Some creative person have to design that. Same with the devices we use. Our home decor, the actual architectural design of our homes. Art is everywhere, and we use and consume it every single day. It's in our favorite shop, how it smells, how it's organized, its furniture. It's in the sidewalks too, because someone designed the tiles that pave the street and the street flower pots and green areas too. It's in the films we watch, it's in the music we listen to, and obviously in how we present ourselves. Yes, I do think we are all artists in a way. We select and curate our wardrobe. We style our hair in a certain way. We choose a pair of glasses that suit not just our natural features, but also our taste. We paint our faces with makeup, perhaps. All of that distills the personality we have, our preferences, our lifestyle, the society we've grown in, our inspiration, and our goals in life. And also, of course, our financial status. The issue pops up when a young person comes and states, I want to be an artist, when this means I want to be a professional artist and be paid for my craft. Many people will have a problem with that. And that worry roots back to capitalism, and maybe farther back to patriarchal societal expectations. This is a rant for another time perhaps, but I honestly believe that patriarchy feeds into capitalism and vice versa. Patriarchal systems are older than capitalist ones, but the latter definitely has found a great ally in the first. So great of an ally that if society finally starts dismantling capitalism, patriarchy would for sure suffer a heavy strike. But I digress. Back to the guideline, and speaking from the perspective of a person that lives in a capitalist system within Europe in 2026, I personally am certain of very few people, perhaps 3 people, that among the hundreds of people I've met throughout my life, that didn't get a direct rejection in answer to their desire to become a full-time artist and make that their job. As for the rest of us, mere mortals, when we expressed our artistic inclinations, when we told perhaps our parents or relatives or friends that we had decided to be artists as a job, we've all gotten some level of concern or objection. It was all very worrying and along the lines of study something that you can earn money from and then you can do whatever you want. which actually meant something like join the workforce, be of service to society, whatever being of service to society means to us older people who are very afraid of you doing your thing and failing and us needing to pick up your pieces back when you fall. And then you'll be so tired and so involved in what adult life means to us, with a family, a home, and other responsibilities, that you will stop pursuing your artsy thing, because you'll realize that it's actually a risk to be a free thinker, and we want to prevent you from suffering, or better said, us from suffering for you. Well, that was intense. But oftentimes it's true. When parents forbid or discourage their child from being an artist or their true selves, they're being the visible face and operating hands of a system that wants you compliant. People in general know, either conscious or unconsciously, that despite a capitalist system feeds from creativity, being an actual creative person or an artist is a pain point within society. If you're creative, it's usual and even natural to you to find solutions to problems when you come across one. If you're sensitized to problem solving, you'll see problems where others see traditions or a functional status quo, and opportunities where others see problems. And all this, in the end, makes you a free thinker. Someone who's less suitable to accept the norms of society and to accommodate. Someone who's less willing to normalize suffering and to grow comfortable in discomfort. I'm quite sure many of us have heard that art in general is synonymous to financial insecurity, and that full-time artists are some sort of bohemian outcasts. The whole educative system's aim, when it includes arts and crafts subjects, is part of the system telling us that we actually need certain skills to be another useful pawn within the workforce, but not to a level that you start to use your skill and knowledge to question the system itself or to defy how it functions. The perceived and sometimes factual insecurity of being an artist in this world, age and economic system is a construction, at least partially, to prevent people from choosing a freelance career that fulfills their actual interests, in opposition to being the total slaves that it wants us to be. And I totally mean it when I say slaves. The system has brainwashed us so very well that we have even internalized and naturalized our own exploitation. And neither freelancers are completely free of this bind. Let's think of it this way. You wake up at 7 a.m. You have your morning coffee or breakfast or whatever you have in the morning, start working at 8, leave work at 5 p.m. And then when you're out, you're so exhausted that you only have time and energy to pick up the kids or take the dog for a walk out if you have them, cook some dinner, perhaps give yourself what feels like a reward or a treat in the form of a beer or a glass of wine or a piece of chocolate or a mug of tea. Go to bed, start over again tomorrow. This is terribly simplistic, but I hope it helps illustrate how we are all sort of trapped in our own routines that spiral around work, around a schedule of working hours meant to make us people perfectly greased gears within a much bigger machinery. A schedule of working hours that is in fact very outdated. It's from the 19th century. And how funny it is that with the money you've made working, now you go and pay for your own basic needs to be covered. No other animal needs to pay for their basic needs to be met. Of course, I understand we live within a society and certain commodities and services are beyond basic needs. But this is a topic for another time, and I don't want to digress much from creativity being the backbone of this video. This situation sums up in a sentence I tend to use a lot. I don't know where it comes from, where I adopted it, or if it's someone else's, but it says, if you don't work for your dream, you'll help build someone else's. Wanting to satisfy your creative pursuits in an economic system that doesn't want you to find your own solutions to live your life in more consonance to your own terms, pace and interests makes you a dangerous person. Those who are institutionalized says it like that, and then you become the lonely weirdo, when you're only listening to the very things that make you human and connect you to nature in general and to your own natural form in particular. Chapter 2. The Financial Dilemma. So, you've chosen to become an artist full-time to earn a living out of it. You've developed your skills enough to start selling, and you've had enough people asking for your pieces to learn that there's an actual interest on your work. The first dilemma you'll encounter is: how does one price a handmade item or a piece of art? Well, if this is going to be your job, and remember you're still immersed in a capitalist system, you need to play by some rules. As sad as it sounds, you can be an outcast, but if you don't follow some general guidelines, you could lose money or time or your own motivation or incur illegal issues even. Or everything. But there are some ideas that could guide anybody to set prices that are suitable for the type of art they are marketing and that are profitable enough to earn a living. Please note that I'm not an economist and that this should not be taken as financial advice. These are just a few ideas that come from my experience and that could help you get started, but please do your own research always before taking action and ask a professional within your local area to learn specific sets of laws and taxes that apply to your case. Un pelo. Here's a list of things that would be wise to keep in mind in order to price your work. Number 1. The average salary in your country or state and the cost of living within your area, which would help you estimate a livable wage. Number 2. The local taxes associated with the type of activity or item you want to sell. Number 3. The fees that you'd be charged to be a self-employed worker or a freelancer. Number 4. If you choose to use a marketplace like Etsy, for example, you will also want to learn about the fees that the marketplace charges in order for you to be a seller within the platform, or in case of using your own website or rent a physical space, those are recurring costs that you'll also need to take into account. Number 5. The prices of other artists or artisan pieces who are currently selling similar items. Number 6. The cost of materials, supplies, tools, shipping material, etc. And of course, the time you spent making the actual pieces that you want to sell. And for this, it's always a good idea to keep some record of the time you spent on every step of the creative process, especially when you're starting and when you're implementing novelties to your process. Number 7. The academic studies that had helped you build your knowledge and skill, or if you're self-taught, like it's my case, for example, the time and resources you've spent learning and developing your art form. Those are also costs that you'll want to have in mind. If this sounds already too much to include in a price, you'll get dizzy when I tell you that there's often a plus that many artists and brands charge called a markup. This refers to an added value that nobody else can give except for them. An identity, a sense of belonging, the exclusivity of them making the piece instead of someone else. All these combined make up for what I say is a fair price. And what's a fair price for an artist that's done their math is often perceived as too expensive by outsiders. It's definitely hard to find balance on other people's eyes, since their pricing expectations of what you should be charging in order to sell are often lower than what's advisable. I've been sharing the occasional piece of content on social media regarding fair price for artisan crafts for some time now, and people surprised me. They understand things when you take the time to explain. But mass manufacturers have wrecked the expectations of the customers in general, warping the manufacturing processes and squeezing the shipping schedules, all to deliver new, very affordable products to customers in record time. It's imperative that we all remember that these companies produce very cheap products, often at a very high cost. A cost that the end consumer is not paying because it's being absorbed by other people, those who are working in very precarious conditions for extremely low salaries. Not to mention the environmental cost of these mass manufacturing processes. I will not get into that rabbit hole today, which is endless, because there are plenty of documentaries and essays and other commentary videos by other creators about this very topic that will for sure explain it in a much deeper manner and better informed than I could ever do. I need artists and artisans need to keep helping and re-educating people on what to expect from a small independent artistic business. A handmade piece can take months, even years, to be finished. It is made in proper work conditions, charging a livable wage, paying taxes on time, and often offering a very niche product. A special, unique piece made by hand, with lots of love and attention to detail by someone that's specialized in what they do, and to whom you can actually put a real name and a face, and with which you can directly talk to. That's something much more special, closer to how artists and craftspeople used to work back in the day before the internet. The general public usually understands the breakdown of a price that includes the hourly wage the artist is charging, the cost of materials, the taxes and the fees, etc. That's what I would say the tangible or objective side of pricing, but there's something much more intimate and subjective to pricing art, a facet that many people may not get as well. And that is when a piece is a one-of-a-kind or the consequence of the artist truly making love with their art form and expressing something that's irreplaceable and repeatable. That's possibly why some pieces of art can be so expensive or straightforward priceless. Think the Guernica by Picasso or the Mona Lisa by Da Vinci. Marta from the edition here. I'm by no means trying to compare mine or anybody else's work with these two artists or their work. I'm using them just as examples of how the uniqueness, the mastery, and the social and expert consensus can value and rate certain pieces of art or craft work up to a level that sets them apart from others. Aside from being two of the most iconically famous paintings ever and that they are survivors from their corresponding eras, these are unique works by artists that were spearheads of their time, people whose style, vision of the world and skill were unique to their own. The mastery and the mystery displayed in these two examples are simply unmatched. Not because other painters don't have the skill that can compete, but because everybody has its own version of how things work and should be done. I'll be detouring here a bit. This could make a huge topic for another video, but us artists can look a bit egotistical about our creation, if you don't mind me using this term, in the way that we know what we want to do and we will do it our way no matter what, because we need to. Influences from other artists can permeate our work, especially in the beginning, but the more we work, the more we develop what's called a personal style. And the stronger our personal style, the less we are likely to want to do what others are doing. So, in a sense, creating is self-serving. The most magical thing happens when what you want to do actually meets somebody else's needs or unspoken thoughts. When an artist feels free to express a private emotion or a desire, what could be seen as self-centered is suddenly a gate for others to help explain ideas that they didn't know how to verbalize, perhaps. This often happens with music, for example, and especially with lyrics. Poetry and novels usually work this way too. When a writer dissects a topic, an emotion, a situation, and they pull the threads further and further, the readers can find themselves reacting to that text, relating the topics to their own life experience, and even viewing their own feelings and life events under a completely new light. All of this, the connection that the artist makes with the public, is completely subjective, and that, from my point of view personally, also adds up to making a fair price for the piece of art that the artist may be selling. The subjective value of artistic work is also worth a livable wage, aside from time, skill, and fixed variable costs. I think this is important, especially for people who are starting off their artistic journey and that could believe that they won't sell anything if they don't set a low, affordable price for their art. This is a widely spread misconception that I'm going to try to debunk here, at the risk of repeating what others have said before me. First of all, underpricing won't necessarily mean a higher rate of sales. It will just attract a type of buyer that's far away from your ideal customer. One that values your work for less than it is truly worth because you yourself have set a low perceived value for it. A fair price must reflect your skill level, your expenses, your experience, and the uniqueness of your work. And second, and perhaps most importantly, underpricing makes a total disservice to everyone. Because if you can sell something for very cheap, whatever it is, the whole community of makers and potential buyers for that same type of thing suffers. The public could perceive everybody else's work as too expensive and could demand that the other makers who've actually priced the products in a fair way lower the price to meet their expectations. It's a similar situation as to when artistic or handmade pieces get compared to mass-manufactured items, with the difference that there's this invisible high cost of a cheap price that's being absorbed by the artisan that undervalues their work and not the poorly paid worker of a mass manufacturing company. It's not a fair situation in either case. So if we artists can actually do what we can on our end to reset the real value of things where it's due, it would work in everybody's interests, both the community of artists and artisans and also the general audience. And I don't want to leave this chapter without addressing a topic that's been a recurring issue. The dreaded I, or someone else I know, could make that for cheaper. There's a lot to address here. I've had this issue popping up, especially in physical personal transactions. Let's see if I manage to explain how I think this attitude is delusional. And this by no means is a personal attack towards anyone, just trying to provide food for thought. As much as I am a firm believer and defender that anybody and everybody is an artist in some way, not everybody will be actually able to make art up to a certain skill level. But here's one tricky part most people who think like this miss completely. It's less costly for you to make it yourself because it's you put in your own time to make it. You're only taking the material costs into account, Meanwhile, when you purchase something from a professional artist or an artisan, you're also paying for their time, the taxes they need to file in, their skill level, etc., etc. If someone who thinks like this actually made the thing, they would realize that the price that they initially questioned was actually well estimated. On another note, this situation begs for another question. The idea is not only if others would be able to make the thing, or if they're willing to spend the time it requires, but if they are actually doing what needs to be done and getting their hands to make it. Most of the people who said this to me personally, or regarding my work, would never ever pick up a single needle to get things started. Some could, but 99% of the times they simply won't. So I guess no. They possibly could, but they most likely won't. Making things by hand in an artisanal way takes lots of time, skill, dedication, and creative vision. It's a learning curve that only a few stubborn individuals are willing to serve onto. This is one of the reasons why artists or artisans sell our work. We dedicate countless hours behind the scenes, learning and developing our skills to make items that are worth the money we ask. And by doing so, we are also share our vision of the world with people that feel inspired by it and give others the chance to enjoy a piece that they cannot or would not be making themselves for whatever reason. That a piece is costly doesn't mean it's overpriced. And again, those who have tried to make something themselves, they know. I don't want to close this chapter without mentioning that there's a pending ethical conversation about straightforward copying another maker's style, which makes the perfect link for the next chapter. Chapter 3. The Weight of Freedom. So, you've got the skill, you've got the market, you've set your price range, and now you're out of ideas. First, I need to ask, how it is that an artist can run out of ideas in the first place. Burnout is a very real thing. Depression, anxiety, and other mental health struggles are real things. So are life events and challenges, having a family, the economy. But I strongly believe that none of these issues affect how an artist can run out of ideas. All these affect your motivation, the time you can dedicate to creating, your attention span. An artist can find inspiration absolutely everywhere. You may not have the time nor the skill to develop something in this moment, but that doesn't mean that you don't have ideas brewing in the back burner. Artists have this hungry way of experiencing the world, constantly feeding from sensations and from emotions, from shapes and colors, from situations. The world itself is an endless source of inspiration for those who perceive it with open arms and clean eyes. And it's truly telling when someone blatantly copies another. I don't think copying is a consequence of running out of ideas. This could mean several things. Number one, perhaps they are just starting and haven't found their own language yet. They know how to do things, but haven't developed their style to design pieces that speak of them only. So they try to replicate other people's work and make an income from it because the style has already proven to be successful, for example. They might not be aware of how this is wrong, but it is still wrong. They're stepping onto someone else's toes to propel their own career forward. They could be copying as an artist instead. That's something I will be addressing in a moment. Number two, perhaps that person wants to make their own thing. They don't want to purchase it. They think they can do it, but they don't want to purchase it, so they do it for themselves, not for sale. And I kind of understand it. I don't see a problem with that personally. Let me know if you have another opinion. Or number 3, they are taking advantage of a smaller maker to make bigger profits. This peeves me badly. It sometimes happens that a new maker or even a mass manufacturer takes some independent small makers' designs to make copies for sale with a much bigger marketing strategy. Perhaps because they know of marketing more than the original maker, or perhaps because this is a team of people working towards making big bucks from a design that's already proven to be worth the hype. Either way, people trying to make profit from someone else's work is not okay. And we should always keep our eyes peeled for rip-offs. It doesn't matter if it's another indie brand or artist, or if it's a large company. They're using someone else's intellectual property without permission nor consent. Again, I'm not an expert, these are my opinions, so please take these statements with a grain of salt. And always, always do your own research to learn more about your rights and how you can protect your work better. I'll try to leave a couple links about intellectual property and copyright to possibly get you started. And before I get too heated with this and completely ignoring the generative AI issue this time around, there are ways to copy like an artist, which is something every maker has done at some moment in their lives. What this means and how to approach it could make for a whole different video, so I'll try to sum it up very briefly. To copy like an artist is the starting point for many creatives. Getting so inspired and so obsessed with another artist's work that it drives you to try your hand at something they did. Perhaps it's a technique they use or the fact that they have recurring colors in their work. Me estoy quedando sin luz, pero a tope además. Or maybe it's a certain style in the way they shape their designs. Anyway, you take bits and details that inspire you and make some sort of collage to create your own piece. It's not copying someone else's work, but adopting one detail of artist X, one mannerism of artist Y, an approach of artist Z, and with time and perseverance, your own work melts the edges of what you borrowed with what you yourself are, and the mix evolves naturally into your own signature style. This could be synthesized as having influences and acknowledging that those artists whose work sparked something within you are in fact your idols. It's marvelous to have someone to look up to, especially in the beginning. As your art matures, those pedestalized figures become some sort of your peers, and it could happen that someone, somewhere, is looking up to you and borrowing something from you to start developing their own art. It's a cycle that seemed to happen even in ancient cultures, when one culture borrows a popular feature from another one and merges it with its own stuff. It's human nature, and that is a totally fine thing to do. It becomes a not okay thing to do when some piece becomes perilously similar looking to another, or a direct copy from a different maker, as this is done without express consent of the author in most, if not all, of the cases. Especially when, as I said, mass manufacturers take advantage of small indie brands or artists to sell things for cheap in order to keep feeding the cannibal wheel of capitalism. In today's day and age, that's a very common issue on social media and on big marketplaces. There also seems to be so few truly novel ideas out there, but there are novelties. It's more of an issue of oversaturation. The media and the internet is overspilling with a range of beige art, as of neutral designs and recycled formulas that are directly marketable, rather than betting for a different point of view. New things represent a risky investment that not everybody is willing to pay the price for, either artistically, emotionally, or economically. Perhaps that's one of the root reasons why people often say that artists are starving people, which brings me to the artist's mission. An artist is constantly making peace with feeling openly, with being so in tune with their inner self and having this burning necessity to express, to give an outlet to that inner world. It's very obvious in the music industry, for instance, when an independent musician makes it, and I'll get into what actually means being successful as an artist in a minute, it's not because their music is massively sellable, or not in the first place at least. It is because they have an authenticity, a purity, a true independent way of existing. They have something that very few other people have the courage to show off. Vulnerable points that are transformed into strengths and identity markers. And let's not mix having a magnificent artistic technique with having honesty while crafting, meaning crafting as performing the art form, whichever it is, from playing music to dancing to sewing a garment or sculpting a piece of wood to make furniture, for instance. You can apply this to any art or craft form. You can be the best at your craft and still be soulless. Or you can be a bit clumsy, a bit dirty, a bit imperfect, and be able to create magic. When technique and identity meet each other in a single person, that's divine. But let's be real, an artist's ability to connect with the public comes from pouring a piece of their soul out there for people to recognize as part of their own. And that's the artist's mission, to feel and to give others the chance to connect with that feeling within them as well. The true magic happens in that connection, and capitalism knows this. Brands, some artists, and now also some content creators know that the strongest way to sell something is making the public feel something. They know that there are ways to manipulate and to use psychological tactics to push people to make a purchase. And there's a very fine line there, along which I'm not sure I myself can discern, because the grays in between are so many, nor am I in a position to establish right or wrongs. I am not a psychologist nor a marketing expert. If I were a marketing expert, I would be managing my own small brand so much better than I am. But well, that's not really the conversation I'm trying to open. If you are an expert in this field, it would be absolutely fantastic to know your opinion on this matter. Please do leave a comment and let us learn a bit more about this topic so we can differentiate straight manipulation to converting sales from more honest, ethical descriptions that actually serve a purpose. Some of the current most talented students of how to emotionally manipulate the general audience are in fact influencers, now often called content creators, although I would like to stick with the term influencer since I wouldn't consider all content creators as influencers. But yeah, aside from the professional marketing companies that work on ad campaigns, this way of using social media has become a very important stream of income for many. These children of capitalist system have learned to surf the net and learned how to portray and promote their own lifestyle in a way that they can affect trends and drive experts' tendencies for their audiences. I wouldn't want to detour much on this topic because in the end, many of these influencers are more like modern freelance advertising agents. It just felt right to tap into this topic since content creation is also a creative outlet, and that is in fact an opportunity for many artists to earn money. And before we move on, There's also this thing about being an artist and being almost obligated to display yourself and your craft on social media. It seems that you don't exist if you're not sharing your story, your art, the benefits of supporting you over another person. And don't get me wrong, social media is super helpful to spread the word. It's democratized the access to artists that would otherwise be unreachable or unknown in other areas of the world. It's a magnificent tool to ring your own bells and to have better control on how your work is presented to other people. But there's this constant pressure to post and to be picture perfect that doesn't really help the artistic mindset. When you're constantly filtering what you do and how you do it, so it can be worthy of a social media post, you're not being your most authentic self. Your expression is corrupted by what you think others would like to see from you, and that's not serving your true purpose as a creative person, right? It is hard to stick to your guns and stay detached from your social media analytics, especially if your work is not as well known. And it is totally fine to sometimes melt into a trend that you enjoy, because this can actually bring new eyes to your art. But in order to stay as authentic as possible, especially in a digital world that's completely oversaturated with AI slop and picture-perfect profiles, I think you've got to be you. I'm personally still on my way to find my voice on social media. I guess it's just like shadow work, if you're familiar with the term. Once you start healing yourself, the healing process never ends. So I wouldn't consider myself as an example on how to use social media to promote my craft, to elevate my own personal view of the world and my artistic career. Still, there's this unmatchable element of authenticity that everyone can apply. Picture perfect is nice, but it's not the full picture. Those who've ever taken actual photographs or filmed videos or work in theater or film know for a fact that there's so much more going on behind the scene. If the workspace is a bit too cluttered, if you're not wearing makeup or fancy clothes, if you're speaking to the audience naturally with no script, those things are irreplaceable. And the combination of what's natural to you, both as an artist and as a person, is what makes your social media presence unique too. That is also a form of silent revolution, to show what things truly are. The raw artistic and life experience feels much more interesting than a photo shoot image that's frozen in time, that dismisses all the processes that made that image possible. And raw human experience, with all its beautiful natural deviations, cannot be replicated. Related to content creation and revisiting the issue of trying to monetize everything, because if you're an artist in these current times, you almost must, I would like to get back on my steps and explore a bit further how it is that nowadays, if you're even just ever so slightly good at something, everyone tells you to monetize it. I've had this realization that hobbies, as well as rest, are now a treasure we must preserve from the capitalist pressure of monetizing everything. Art and creativity have always been refuges in which we can decompress and enjoy the making of something just for the sake of it. Capitalism has implanted this idea of urgency in our brains, that if you're not earning money, if you're not producing, if what you do has no economic purpose, that the thing you do is worthless and that you're wasting time. It has demonized the idea of having free time, taking breaks, or having an artistic interest aside of your day job. It's make all the things that define us as human, as animals with biological and psycho-emotional needs, something bad. something not productive, which is very convenient to the system. If you're not serving it, you're a potential threat to it, and you get flagged as such. When you're exploring your own interests and developing your creative brain, you're actually healing both your emotional and neurological system, but also a collective wound. A deep wound that has forced us to unconsciously see ourselves as mere pawns that need to make money in order to survive. As I said before, no other living thing in the world needs to earn their living. Only us humans have invented this fun game in which we need to work 1/3 of our days minimum, so we can hopefully have a roof over our heads and food every day. Marta O the edition here again, just to point out that it is not an issue of people not wanting to work. I know nobody that doesn't want to work, in the sense that we all enjoy being of service in one way or another. Almost everybody likes being useful and helpful with the natural abilities and learned skills that one has. It's more the fact that us people are finally realizing that we are not being paid enough for the jobs we carry out, and that the capitalist system doesn't really want us enjoying our free time and has even scheduled when and how much free time we can have so we can keep being productive. It's the fact that people are starting to wake up to the fact that the job market is very antisocial and anti-human within capitalist system, and that we are not really willing to keep being slaves or sell our work for lower than is reasonable to live with dignity. Of course, money can be very practical. It's been a thing for millennia and helps with the exchange of goods and services. Still, bartering is the oldest way of commerce, and money has coexisted with it for centuries. Money facilitates trade, but it's not the only way. And in capitalism, we've been sold the belief that money is the way, and even that it is the end purpose in itself, which is so far from the truth from a humanistic perspective. The human experience includes art and creation as intrinsic forms of exploring, learning and developing new skills and ways of thinking. It's not even just the mission of the artist, it is a human need. And this urge of capitalism to make us feel we need to include money in the equation only speaks of how we are forced to submit to a system that has dehumanized us for long enough already. Money is the tool that keeps people tied up, often unable to rebel and get back to a more natural lifestyle because bills keep coming every month. It is also the lever that is used to trick us into spending a considerable amount of our lifetime serving an employer or a company for a salary that doesn't really represent the true value of our work. Because if the company actually paid employees for the true worth of what they produce, where would they be getting their profits? Their earning margins are just there in the time they underpay the staff. This brings me to yet another rabbit hole, which is artists that pursue their creative interests while working a full-time job. Because yes, making art is hard work and it is expensive, and more often than not, life happens and inserts itself in the middle. It's kind of a villainized way of being an artist, and I hate it so much that it is looked down on, when in fact it requires so much discipline, organization and perseverance. I find it admirable when an artist confesses that they actually have another job that makes them money. Society loves categorizing people, and if someone has a job that economically supports them, it instantly classifies that person as if that job was their main interest. I find it so shallow. Everybody has main interests, and it may or may not coincide with what they do to pay their rent. Being an artist is, again, hard work, and many people don't have the privilege or the means to pursue a purely artistic career for a living. Some may not have a supportive family system. Some may have dependent people or children to take care of. Some may have been born in a place or within a society that don't accept the style of art they're interested in. Again, as long as we live within capitalism, we need to make money. Having another job doesn't mean an artist is no longer an artist. It just means that their art is not enough to support their livelihood in this system right now, which is sadly a very usual case. That another job is what puts food on the table and supports their artistic pursuits. And as unfair as it is, because if people had the chance to make more art, this world would be so much happier and culturally wealthier, artists that fund their craft with another job are also actually an integral part of the support system for local scenes and for other artists. Nobody knows the struggle of being creative and free thinking better than someone who's had to sacrifice huge amounts of their time and energy to a job that may not be their job of their dreams, but that helps them keep creating. This adds up to proving how creating is a necessity for an artist. The emotional strength and resilience of pursuing art on the side is worth praising and makes these people very valuable assets that keep healing the capitalist society from the inside. So there's a very real feeling of privilege when an artist can dedicate all their time to their artistic pursuits. And I could differentiate several definitions of privilege in this section. There's the privilege of having the funds to not worry if your artistic ideas don't help you grow your bank account. And here I could insert Nepo babies as of people who are actually family members of already famous artists and celebrities that start off their careers from very high up in the capitalist ladder. There's also the privilege of having a support system that keeps you afloat no matter what. It may be family, friends, or other local artists who are people who believe in you so much that they'll catch you if you fall, either emotionally or economically. People who will help you grow faster as an artist so you can get better results sooner. People you know, who I'd call contacts, that will advocate for you and that can open doors for you so you can access opportunities you would not have otherwise. And I could also say there's a privilege of being a natural phenomenon that is just magical from the start and that can turn everything they touch into gold, but I'm not really sure that exists. For you to be successful, there are several planets and stars that need to be aligned, and it not always depends on the person. It sometimes is just the environment, being at the right time, in the right place, with the right people, and having the answer to a question they perhaps are not even brewing at the time. So perhaps this is the privilege of being born or living in the right place and time, and get the chance to meet those with which you'll grow. In a system that needs you to make money for the people on the vortex of the pyramid, having the privilege to create freely from a mindset of abundance instead of urgently needing to monetize it, so it's sustainable, is actually very rare. And I'll speak of my own experience. Most artists that I know unite privileged aspects like being part of the working or middle class, born European or living within Europe, being white or white passing, having a supported family or friend group, knowing other artists, etc. But some of these advantages are still not enough for an artist to make their craft sustainable and make a business out of it. There's a lot of investment behind the scenes, a lot of knocking on doors and sending dossiers, which would be compared as sending CVs to apply for jobs, and a lot of wrestling with what you want to do versus what's actually sellable, or what people would be open to buying. There's also a lot of learning about running a small business or how freelancing works, which includes keeping books of accounts, finding the most suitable suppliers for you, exposing yourself to reach new customers, etc. And none of that is done overnight, nor is free or cheap. And if it is free, it comes at the cost of you spending your time to teach yourself how to do all these things. And if you finally decode many of these issues and find a route toward your own version of success, there's still the final boss of capitalism and its implemented meaning of success. Because once you've decided you're going full force toward a creative career, the society pressures you and tries to shape your way to conform to its unnatural, vicious type of success, which means that you're only truly making it as an artist if you're living out of it and earning handsome money for your craft. This could be one way of viewing success, and it is understandable that in this day and age, if a small artistic business is economically thriving, it could be called a successful one. Still, I need to bring some nuance to this last topic because everybody has their own concept of what success is. Perhaps it's earning copious amounts of money or followers and fans. Perhaps it's making your business self-sufficient so you can attend your other daily issues without worry. Perhaps it's just enjoying what you do and considering anything else that comes with it as collateral extra gifts. Perhaps it's serving people as you help them reflect on ideas or concepts that can be otherwise neglected on the daily, or help them elaborate difficult feelings with your own representations. Or perhaps it's just earning enough money to live a comfortable life, with a little extra for savings and some daily treats like having dinner out, purchasing a fancier piece of clothing instead of a more regular one, or going on a weekend trip. Tangent incoming! In an era where weekends are spent resting or doing chores around the home because there's no time for that during the working days, and here's yet another example of how capitalism exhausts us physically and mentally, making us use our days off as days to pay our bodies and minds for the exploitation the system puts us through on the daily. Taking a weekend trip, for example, to fully enjoy life is also a form of revolution. So I think I can wrap this essay or rant or whatever you want to call it by saying that an artist is, no matter what else they do to earn money, and that the desire to switch off the brain and stop imagining new projects, new ideas or new points of view, it's never fruitful when you're a creative person. No matter how much you try to suppress it or how much capitalism wants to force you to conform to its more productive way of thinking life, having a partner, having kids, slaving in a job you don't necessarily enjoy because you need to pay your bills, and leaving creativity to other people or even to AI, and that's a whole another rant for another time. You will always be an artist, even if you think you lost your spark, or that you don't have the time or the energy to create right now. If it's in your essence, that's how you see life. Being an artist is, by my own definition, a revolutionary state of mind that's open and permeable and curious and hungry to learn. And that is against the system that was built to serve just a few selected individuals. Wow, that was truly long. I truly hope this helped you in some way, or that you found it interesting at the very least. I could have extended myself longer in some sections, so I'll take it as my calling to make more chatty videos like this if you like it. Please let me know if you want to add up to the conversation. I would absolutely love to read your thoughts and your point of view. And as per usual, I'm not yet sure of the formula I should be applying here, but hey, I also need to pay my bills. So if you want to support my work, it would mean the world to me if you join me on Patreon, where I offer exclusive content like sewing and wire wrapping tutorials, works in progress, early access to these longer videos and more. I also have an Etsy shop where you'll find fantasy headpieces, corsets and other magical garments. And that you can subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the bell button so you don't miss a thing and all that jazz. So I know that these videos I'm making are worth your time. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one. I even ran out of water. And just like that, from morning to evening, filming. I need to shower. ¡Qué calor! Science has proven that time and time again that children of all ages, ¿qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? In inglés, their own craft and madre mía, estoy ya. Type of art, they are but other. Ya no sé leer. Joder, en serio, me voy a equivocar ahí. Ay, me quiero sentar de otra manera. Oye, esto está como muy mal iluminado. ¿Qué pasa? That you don't have ideas. There's. Wow. Qué poca luz. Espérate. Qué estrés. Music to dancing to so. Me acaba de distraer. Huele a bacon. Mejor así. Será muy oscuro. Estaré chamuscada. No sé. Tengo mucho calor. ¿Eh? Ya no sé pronunciar. Mogollón. Madre mía. Socorro.